Good afternoon, dear participants. The topic of our paper is clustering English Premier League referees using unsupervised machine learning techniques. And I want to introduce the corresponding authors, and they are me, myself, Ufuk Yarışan, Mustafa Ispa, and our mentor, Docent Dr. Tolga Kaya. Before starting the presentation, I want to show my appreciation to the other contributors. Let me proceed with the problem and the solution we offer. The problem is the limitation of AI on decision processes during the football matches. Through AI, matches cannot be controlled because measuring the tempo of the game, evaluating the risk of injury, and understanding the players' behaviors are extremely difficult today for AI. And of course, these are just a few examples. And we thought that if managing matches through AI is a hard thing to do, maybe we can manage the ones who make the decisions during the matches by using AI. In an ideal world, it is expected that referees are objective. However, if we could cluster them by using machine learning techniques in a meaningful way, it means that there is an objectivity problem among referees. This objectivity difference detection is a good way to manage the decision takers through AI. Here is a general look over to our presentation, and let's start with the literature review. We will examine the literature in 3 steps. To begin with the limitation of AI in football matches decision-making processes. Firstly, AI cannot make empathic decisions. AI cannot understand the intention of the players in special situations and cannot respond by using verbal or body language. That's why AI is insufficient to manage the matches today. So we thought about how we can manage the referees. We decided to examine the behaviors of the referees. In the literature review, it's stated that the referees clearly show fewer yellow cards to the home team. However, Endrich and Gesche clearly showed that during the pandemic, with increasing ghost matches. By the way, ghost matches means that matches without specs. This effect is diminished, and referees called almost 5% more fouls than the normal matches. When the reasons for these different decisions were examined, we came across the reasons such as the noise of the spectators of the home team, the reputation of the players, the origin of the team, and the prejudice of the referees have. Since these parameters can be perceived differently by each referees, we thought that there must be differences between these referees in terms of decisions they made. And we started the research to prove this. Now I'm going to explain which methods we used during this research. We used 4 different techniques, and after a minute you will see we used principal component analysis as an explanatory analysis, and we used 3 different unsupervised clustering methods to be sure about our findings. And those clustering techniques are hierarchical clustering, k-means clustering, and quasi-c-means clustering. After this point of the presentation, Mustafa will take over.
In this part of presentation, I will briefly explain the data preparation process of our model. In the data preparation, the original data has been taken from the English Premier League, which includes match outcome data between the years 2009 and 2018. In the data, there are 3,801 matches and 23 referees in total, after the extraction of referees who manage less than 50 matches. We did this extraction to increase statistical reliability. The original data was included the halftime and full-time statistics, such as total shoot of teams, shoots in target, corners, total foul, red and yellow card numbers. The halftime data is extracted since it's strongly correlated with full-time data. We have created a dummy variable, Derby, by selecting the matches played by these same teams. There is a biased belief among the football fans that derby matches have managed differently because of the temper atmosphere before, during, and after the derby matches. This temper has mostly depended on a historical conflict between the different sides of cities, mostly based on the ideological differences. And we want to interpret this. Lastly, we have created a full card ratio, summing total yellow card number by multiplying red cards by 2, since 2 yellow cards equal to 1 red card in football. The average football number divided by the total yellow cards to find frequency of showing cards for each referee. Also, we can see the sample of the dataset in here. In this part of presentation, I will briefly explain what we find with our used methods. We have conducted principal component analysis firstly, as Ufuk explained, to lower dataset, smaller dimension for interpreting data in a more sensible way. In the cumulative proportion of variance explained, PVA graph, an obvious elbow formation could not be seen and 2D PCA is selected since it gave the most meaningful groupings. We have found 66.5% PVA. The numbers in the graph are substitutes the names of the referees. The interpretation of the axes are PC1 is aggressiveness of game and PC2 axis is viewing pleasure of the game. For example, we can see the 13th and 18th referees close to the right tab, which are close to derby, shoot, and red card variables. This means that these referees are suppressed the matches with red cards while they are managing more derby matches which have more shoot and goal relatively to other matches. As I will explain in the further slides, however, maybe we can call these referees as derby managers, maybe the rock stars. After the PCA, we have conducted hierarchical K-means and fuzzy C-means cluster algorithms respectively. According to our reviews, 4 clusters are selected in a most meaningful way. After we looked into average numbers of clusters, we interpreted the clusters like group 1 is let them play, which means that the referee is calling fewer falls and have lower fall card ratio, which states they have lower frequency while showing cards. The referees prefer to let the match play in the flow without interpretation. Group 2 is thinking twice referees. These referees are resembled with the third cluster, which contains average guys. However, the group 2 show cards less frequently, which led to higher goal average. The cluster is taking responsibility and gives second chance to the players for increasing the tempo of the matches. The group 3 have the habit of behaving toward their cards, which results in lowest goal average. They tend to show average referee behaviors. Lastly, the group 4, which have lowest fall and card ratio while having highest average in goals and shoots. This data shows that referees show their characters by high frequency of cards, but do not decrease the tempo with their decisions. We can assume that these referees are dealing with stress well, since they have highest percentage in terms of managing derbies. The rock stars. In the 4-window figure, the left top graph is designed to show the clusters which are clustered in the same groups by 3 different algorithms, and the ones who cluster differently. Respectively, diamond marks clustered differently by fuzzy C-means. However, these referees group in the same by hierarchical and K-means. Likewise, question marks are clustered differently by hierarchical method. However, these referees grouped in the same cluster by K and fuzzy C-means. The other marks, such as cross, heart, tick, and star, group in the same cluster by 3 different algorithms. The crosses are representing let them play, ticks are representing thinking twice, hearts are average guys, and lastly, stars are representing rock stars. Also, the right top graph shows the hierarchical clustering graphs. The left lobe shows the k-means, and the right lobe graph shows fuzzy c-means clusters. To sum up, except diamonds and question marks, all of the other referees grouped in the same cluster by all methods. Diamonds and question marks grouped in the same cluster by 2/3. There are no any referee which is clustered differently by 3 algorithms. In this part of presentation, I will briefly explain what we have done, what do we recommend for further research. To conclude, the model which contains the cluster of referees in this study showed that the characteristic of the referees may be classified based on the match outcomes. Forming groups have been proposed by our model, as I just explained, like Rockstar and Think Twice. Lastly, we want to start our recommendation for the future resources. With the extended features such as the repetition of themes and crowd noise factors, the model could be updated in a more reliable way, and the reasons for this sensible clustering should be investigated. Adding new features may give insights of referees' behavioral systems. Increasing data number may make possible to implement new methods like Gaussian mixture model, GMM. A bad production model can be developed just considering the referees, which is announced before the matches. This is so important. Also, the league managements, referee training programs, and the match management approaches in football games can be changed after the increasing understanding of referees to improve viewing pleasure of the football fans to catch the increasing standards in the global world. This is so important since the most of the leagues get their incomings and brand values from the viewing pleasure level based on the fans, obviously, and fair play level according to FIFA and UEFA, since these are boosting the tempo and viewing pleasure of the game. And the fans find it so important. That's why league managers giving importance to this topic, and they will find referee training programs and these researches so important. So we can see our references in here, which we have used in our presentation. And lastly, I want to say thank you. Thanks for listening us. And I want to show my respect and appreciation my dear friend Ufuk Yarışan for his support during this research. And also I want to thank our dear mentor, Docent Dr. Tolga Kaya. Thanks a lot for your support, sir. Could you also please share your questions and feedbacks for us? Thanks again and again.